So you want to be a pirate? Well, first off,
You need to find yourself a girl, mate.
but secondly, I can kind of see why you'd want to. Well, pump the brakes there, Swabby, because I got some stuff to tell you. Before you can do any of that pirating stuff, you have to learn the basics of ship navigation and how a ship functions and what you need to do to operate as a very successful crew. So, in this video, I'm going to be taking you guys through mainly the PS5 players, but this can be put to anyone that wants to learn some more nautical takes on sailing. So let me take you by the hook and welcome aboard to the basics of nautical sailing. Alright, so first things first, you gotta learn the names for all the parts of the ship, how these things operate, and what do you ought to call them should you call things out to your crew and need them to get on it. Now, this is applicable across smaller ships, but I'm using the galleon as a reference because it's the same across the board, but just on a smaller scale for the smaller ships. Now, up first on the list, and most prominently, we have the helm. No, it's not called a wheel, it's called the helm. Now, helms operate differently across the board for each ship type. The galleon most notably has the longest turning cycle of all the other ships, and is also the slowest to turn in the water unless you raise your sails for a tighter turn radius. The only thing left to do now is familiarize yourself with how your turning radiuses work. Just keep in mind whenever you're sailing northwest, your ship is always going to want to turn southeast. So you're going to want to overcorrect for whichever way the ship wants to turn, and then adjust vice versa because it can shift. Now, your next job as a helmsman is to be able to direct attention on certain parts of the ship. And no, it's not front, back, left, or right. You're a pirate, and if you want to be a step ahead than your new crewmates, then you're going to want to use the nautical terms that sailors used back in the day when they sailed on these wooden ships. Front is bow, back is stern, right is starboard, and left is port. And for instance, to be specific on a certain direction, say if you're being chased or chasing someone, you'd say off the starboard stern, off the port stern, off the port bow, and off the starboard bow. This can make for immersive and in-depth communication because you don't want to say off to the northeast, northwest, southeast, or southwest, because that means your crewmates have to pull out their compass, follow which way. Instead, they can look straight to which direction you said, and they'll know exactly where your potential chaser or chasee is at. Now, up next on ship functionality, we have sails, and sails have two forms of function. You have the first one, which is a cleat. Now, what does a cleat do? Well, it allows you to raise and lower your sails. Now, it's important to keep in mind, and this is a little tidbit for whenever you're on the helm, it's the same across every ship, but it's mainly the main mast. So if you look on this galleon, the horizon line is a little bit above the main mast. Now you're going to want to raise the sail, but not too much. You're going to want to raise it just to about this little sweet spot to where you can't see the back of where you just put the sail and the front of where you've just put the sail. This sweet spot allows you to go back up to your helm, and if you look, your horizon line is pretty much parallel with your sail. Now on a galleon, and I think the brig, you don't have to do this because this front sail sits a little higher up, but you're going to want to do the same on a galleon to the front sail, and if you run back to your helm, you'll see here in a moment, your horizon line sits almost perfectly flat with the rest of your sail, and you're only going to want to see to the bowsprit. You don't need to adjust a whole lot, just make sure you find that sweet spot, and you'll be good for seeing all your horizons. Now for the second part of sail functionality, we have this little guy. What is he? He is called a block. It's not a sail angler. I've heard so many people call this thing different things. Just angle sails. It's called a block. What this allows you to do is to adjust your sails completely to the left or right to catch wind. Now, each ship has a strong suit in this specific field with how fast they go, depending on which way the wind's going and which way you have your sails angled. So for instance, the way I'm angling the sails right now, the wind is blowing off my starboard bow, so I'm tilting the sails off so that I can catch as much wind as I possibly can. Now, the galleon operates the fastest with a headwind. A headwind is when the wind is blowing straight at your back and you have full billow going straight with the wind. The brig sails fastest with the crosswind. Now, this is the middle guy of all the ships, and arguably it's one of the faster ships, which, I mean, it is, but it has two ways of becoming faster than compared to the sloop or the galleon. With a crosswind, it's going to blow either off your starboard bow or off your port bow. You adjust your sails accordingly, and you'll actually sail faster than the galleon. And then for the sloop, its caveat is that it only sails its fastest if it sails against the wind. So that's not the fastest it sails, but if you're trying to outrun someone, say if you're outrunning a galleon or a brig, if you're on a sloop, you're going to want to sail against the wind and angle your sails flat against it. Smaller ship sails quicker against the wind. I mean, makes sense. It's a nimble, small vehicle. A galleon is going to sail like a brick in these conditions, and if a galleon has a headwind or if a brig has a headwind blowing off your starboard stern or your port stern, you're going to want to adjust your sails to catch as much wind as you possibly can until the wind shifts in your favor. And when you need to holler out to your crew saying to raise a specific sail, the names of the mast are mainmast, mizzenmast, foremast. Now coming up next, we have the Achilles heel of every new player, which is this guy. This is a capstan. No game, it's not an anchor. Don't tell me that. I know I'm lowering anchor, but this is called a capstan. What this does is, well, lower your anchor. But under no circumstances should you ever leave your anchor down. The only times you ever want to do this is to turn your wheel hard left and right and do an anchor turn if you're in deep waters and you can't harpoon anything, which I'll get to that in a moment, or if you need to stop yourself from coasting in. If you're ever drifting into an island or getting close to one, always raise your sails, drift in, and if you're drifting too fast, drop your anchor and immediately raise it. I see too many new players sing to this time and time again, and it baffles me because there's so many videos about this game teaching new players to not lower their anchor, and I still see so many of them do it. So please, I'm only looking out for you guys here. Never leave your anchor down. It's a good way to get your butt handed to you. Now let's go over the decks. You have your main deck, your poop deck, and the forecastle. Then going down below, this is pretty straightforward. You have your lower deck and your hold. Now going along the catwalk, basically the only thing you'll be doing in the hold is repairing any holes that you have down below with wood planks that you're given on the lower deck. Now near the bow of the lower deck, you're going to have an assortment of chests, one for clothing, one for accessories, one for equipment, an ammo crate, a weapons locker, and a pet chest. And then going near the aft of the lower deck, you're going to have a bunch of supplies, one for cannonballs and various projectiles, and another one for wood planks for repairs. Now going to the center of the lower deck, you're going to have to the right of your map table food barrels. I often put fruit in the left and I put meat and bait in the right barrel. Next to that, you're going to have your stove, which is meant to be used to, well, cook foods of variety of sorts, from anything from fish you find to animals you kill. Then next to that, you have arguably the most important thing, which is your grog barrel or your spirit barrel. Remember, a sober sailor isn't a happy sailor. And then across from the map table on the left side, you have your water barrel meant for fire maintenance. And that's pretty much it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It took a minute to make. For any existing players, I hope you guys learned some more nautical terminology and what things are called in this proper loosely fitting time period that this game takes place in. But thank you guys so much for watching, and to all you new PS5 players that are joining the seas, I look forward to seeing what adventures you guys bring. Just make sure to maybe turn off crossplay for the first little bit. But hey, thanks for sticking around, and if I can interest you in watching any of my other videos, feel free to. But anyways, I've been Captain Classic, and I'll see you on the seas.
Singing yard, and the sailors be from the creek to the yard. We're wild and free, keep a steady hand, we'll sail on and on this ship of dreams. We will